Hello friends, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. In this video, we are going to talk about Framework 7 SQLite with first data migration. How do you create a database using the SQLite? And how do you perform a migration and also update the database table, having a controller where you can perform all the CRUD operations. So that is the create, read, update, and delete. That is what we're going to talk about today by using the SQLite. So in this project, we're going to create web API, and that's what we're going to use for this project. Now, the next video, I will talk about performing the same CRUD operation with EFCore Framework 7 using SQL Server. But this time around, you're talking about using SQLite. Why do you have to use an SQLite? SQLite is lightweight. It includes the database into your application for small website applications such as mobile apps, small mobile apps. Also, applications such as blogs, you can use this SQLite for them because it includes the database in your application settings. So you need not to install SQL Server or connect to an external database. It has it already in the application. So that is why we need to use the SQLite. Let's have a look on how to do this in this project. Create a web API, and I have an old project that I have created already. So if you don't know how to create this, launch of Visual Studio 2022, and this video using the Entity Framework 7, that's a .NET 7. Click on File and then go to New Project. Now this project, we are going to choose Web API, and that is over here, ASP.NET Core Web API. Click on Next, choose the Entity Framework of 7.0, and that is over here, 7.0. And you can see I have 3.1 up to 7.0. We want to use the latest version as I speak, so 7.0 is the latest one. Choose that and click on Create to get the project created. So this is what I have. As soon as you create this project, you can see I have empty, nothing here. So we're going to start with our Entity Framework using the SQLite database. What is the first thing to do? We have to actually install some packages that we're going to use for a data migration, and that's the database as well. So we have to install the SQLite and EFCore and EFCore.Tools. So let's click on dependencies. Click on Manage Nuget Packages. Now with this Manage Nuget Packages, can just click on Browse, and I have already installed the Entity Framework Core and the Entity Framework Core.Tools. Okay, you can see I have SQL Server here, but we're not going to use the SQL Server. We're going to use an SQLite, so I have to install the SQLite as well. So click on the Browse tab, and now you're going to use SQLite. So SQLite. So let's wait for the search to be done. Then we're going to install SQLite from Microsoft. So we need Microsoft.Entity Framework Core SQLite. So that's the 95 million downloads. So let's click on this and let's install. So click on Install, and I'll wait for the installation to be done. Alright, we accept it. Okay, so now we've installed that. So we make sure we install the Entity Framework and the Entity Framework Tools as well. So you can see from the installed one, we have the lite over here, and we also want to install Entity Framework Core and the tools. So these are the packages that we need in our application. Okay, so let's close that. The next thing here, we have to create a database connection. So let's go to our app settings. Now with the app settings.json, that's where we're going to specify a database connection. So since we are using the SQLite, what we need to do here is very simple. So let's have a connection here, and that's going to be a connection string, as you know. Now let's give it a name as default connection. So default connection. And now in here, we're going to specify the data source. then it's equal to SQLite.db. So this is what we need, SQLite.db. So this is a database that we are going to create. Only this, okay? So this is going to create a database and add it to our application. So we are done with this. Let's copy this and let's save. Now let's go to our program.cs and let's register our settings here. So let's see if we can actually use builder. So we need builder dot and services. So dot add db contest. So we need to add db contest over here. Now with this contest, let's set apps db contest. We haven't created this file, so we're going to create later on. Then we pass in the options here and we set these options market as. So here we want to use these options dot use. So instead of using the SQL server, we're going to use the SQLite. Okay, then we pass in builder dot configuration. So dot configuration dot get connection string, that is over here. And now you know the setting that we have, we paste it over here. There's the name of the session or the connection as default connection. Now with this file, let's copy this and create this. So in the Solution Explorer, we can add a folder to organize our work. And now we create a folder. The name is going to be data. Now let's create a model inside this data model. So let's add this and class. Now I'm going to name this class as appdb contest. Now with this appdb contest, we want to get the connection, so we pass this, we inherit from db contest. So we inherit from db contest. Then click on this control plus dot, and now let's click on generate this appdb contest and pass in this option. Now this option is inherited from the base option class, so we pass in the appdb contest. So appdb contest, we pass in that and we are good to go. Now this project, as you know, we're going to talk about an employee, so we can create a public or can pass in prop. And now this is going to be db set, so we pass in an employee. Now with this employee, the name is going to be, we just add s, so employees. Okay, so now we are done with this. We have to go in there and create our models. So in order to create our models, you can see I have a model here already, and I created a folder called models, and I'll add a name, that's a class. And now this class, you have an ID, name, and age. So that is our model we have here. Alright, so we can go to the program.cs file. Now this control plus dot, let's utilize this, the data. Let's include the data here. Okay, so you can get rid of that. Alright, so now we have our connection ready. We have our settings also ready here, and we have our DB contest ready as well. So can we go in there and create a database? Yes, we can. Click on SQL Server Object from this view option if you're not finding it over here. Now you can see we have a database here, but currently if I refresh this, if I expand databases, because I have no database here. Let's go in and perform migration. Now when you add migration, you're going to see a database being added over here as an SQLite.db. So let's do that. Go to Tools. Now manage Nuget packages and come my package console. So you have it here. Let me clear screen. Now this is what we're going to do. So add migration. Now with this migration, I'm going to give it a name as create. So create employee table. So let's wait if everything's set. It's going to create the database and add the table for us by using this as a database name. So employees, we have it over here, and that is supposed to be omitted what? M. So we have this. Now we can correct this. Okay, so let's correct this. Instead of this, let's correct it. Now when we correct this, we have to apply another migration as well. So add migration, then we say correct spellings. So we're adding a new migration. So we're going to create a migration for us by using the correct one that we have stated. As you can see from it is over here. Okay, so that is a let's see, we have this one and the correct spellings. You can see we have an employees, and you can see we have an employee over here. So that's so this rename table, and now we have to rename the table as you can see from here. Okay, so let's perform database. Let's update database. So update database. So this is going to create a table for us. It's going to run the query, and as you can see from here, the query is being run. That's an SQL query. So if you check here, you can see insert into this. We have this name and age, and so these are the columns that you can see from here. Okay, so now when we are done, let's go to the SQL server. Let's refresh this, open the last one, database, open it, and now let's refresh and see if we have that database over here. Okay, so let's see, let's try to open the other ones and see database. Do you have the one that you created? Now we did not specify the name of the database, right? Now let's see our app settings. So here you see we have our app settings here, right? Now let's go to our Project Solution Explorer. Now do we see any? So you can see we have an SQLite DB over here, right? So you can see we have the database attached to our system. All right, so now with this, the next thing that we're going to do here to access this, you have to install that is DB browser, and let's say if you have that, so DB browser for SQLite, you have to install this application. Now this is free, so you can just go to the internet and now try to download that. So type in DB browser for SQLite, and you're gonna have that app pop up. You download this. Okay, so when you download it, then you can actually install, and as you can see from here, you can click on open database. So with open database, let's click on this. Then we have to locate where this file is. So it's in a local disk C. There's a folder called this, and I have this repository explained, the EFCore relationship. And so this is the file SQLite. Click on open. So we have a database. So these are database employees. Now click on browse data. Now you can see from here we have an ID, and name, and what, age. So let's try to add sample data here. So age is, let's say 45, and we have the name as. Now the next one, let's see if you can actually have the next one here. So browse. Now that is, so if you check here, you can see we have, so save, and let's see, so we have these names. Now tab key, refresh this. So let's try again and see what we're supposed to do when we get to this section. Okay, so you can see we have ID. Now let's try to, so age here, let's make it as 25. Then the next one, we're going to say Frank. All right, the next one we're going to talk about, so we can actually clear this. Okay, so the next one I'm going to talk about, actually let's give it as 35, and that's going to be Frederick. Okay, the next one I'm going to be 20, and that's going to be Uswe Champon. Now the next one is going to be maybe 40, and you're going to say Mavis. So the next one is going to be 28, and you're going to say Richmond. So the next one, let's add a couple of names here, and okay, so with this, okay, now when you are done, click on write changes, and now it has been saved now. So if you want to check, you can actually write a query, or you can actually execute a query to see that. Okay, so you can see we have all this data here. Now everything is intact, and that's the data. We have almost 5 rows over here. Okay, so now if we see from here, let's say this is going to be a new one. Now we don't want to have a new one, so we can actually delete them. So delete. Let's delete this as well. Okay. Alright, so when we refresh it now, you can see we have this data here. Now the next thing to do here is to write changes, and it is done now. So execute the SQL, and now you can see select. So select star from, and now the name is table is employees. So when you run this query, let's see. So you can see we have from 1 up to 5, and these are the names. Alright, so our table is now ready. Now what you have to again to do is we have to create our controller, so we can actually call in this connection and perform these CRUD operations. So to do that, let's close all this. So save and close them. So close all. Now let's go to Solution Explorer and controller. Let's create a controller here. So right click on controllers folder and click on empty one. This time we're going for an API. So empty, add, and now we're going to make it as an employee. So add, and that's going to be an employees controller. So let's see, employee controller.cs. So that is a class. We need to create a constructor for this and inject. So control plus period. Now click on generate constructor, and now let's inject our connection. That's the app db context class. So we create an object out of this, so we can actually use that. So control plus dot, and now create an assigned field. Let's have it done. Now the first thing to do here is we want to, so that's going to be an http get verb, because here we want to get all lists. So public, and that's going to be task. This task is going to be action results. So action results, and now this action results, we're going to have a list of what is the t value here, and that's going to be an employee. So that's a class, and now we give it a name as get employees. Okay, so get employees, and now here we specify this as, let's store this var, that's an employees is equal to, we call the app db context class dot employees, so dot to list async. So let's convert them to a list, so we can actually return. Then we are going to say return, so that is return. Okay, we pass in the employees, and this okay is going to have a status code of 200. So let's pass in an await keyword here, so we can actually set that. Alright, so we have this. Now control plus period, let's add this model. Alright, so that this, we are done with this. Now we can actually copy exactly the same thing and try to get a single one. Now with this single one, we need to specify here with an ID. Okay, or we can specify here with name. So whatever, we can, let's specify it here with ID. So we're going to say ID, and now this ID is an integer, so we make a specific. Now get employee, and we pass in here ID. So make sure what you pass in between the verb, the same thing I pass in over here as ID. Now you are not returning a list, you are returning only an employee. So instead of an employee, you make it an employee. Now here, instead of the two lists, we don't want to do that. So we want to say dot first or default. So we can use first or default or find async. Then in here, you're going to say employee max 2 employee dot, it has an ID, then it's equal to this ID over there. So now we can have a decision here. So if employee it is not equal to null, then return. So let's make it as, then return okay with this employee. Okay, so else return null. That is simple. Or return not found. So return not found, and that's also simple as well. Alright, so we are done with the singular, so getting a simple 1s or single employee. Now let's go to, so that is the get, right? So that's the read. Now let's go to create. So let's create an employee. So how do you create an employee? And that's going to be exactly the same thing here. So let's say, let's copy this, and now let's paste this here. And now instead of the get, here is going to be post, because you want to create an employee. So here, instead of employees, we're going to get the list of this. So instead of get employees, you're going to say add employee, and now we create an object. There's the employee object, and I will say new employee. So that's the new one coming in. Then we can first check. So we can first check if employee is not equal to null. So if a new employee coming in is not equal to null, then we want to else return. Okay, so else we can return bad request. So bad request over here. And if it is equal to not equal to null, this is what we can actually do. We can actually pass in, so appdb dot employees dot add. Now you're going to add this new employee that is coming in. Now after adding, you can call in an await keyword. There is a appdb context dot save changes async, and now the data is going to be added and saved for us. Now the next thing that we are going to do here is the delete. So with the delete, let's copy this, and now let's return also a list, because after deleting we want to return the same list. So instead of the at here, it's going to be delete employee. And now we don't need to specify this, we want to specify only ID. So this is going to be an integer int ID. Now with this, it's still going to be a post. Okay, so this is going to be a post. Now with this post, as you can see from here, we can check delete this ID. So we can find it in the database first, then we can delete that. So we can say var and employee, okay, employee is equal to appdb context dot employees, so dot first or default, or we can use find async. Okay, so find async. Then with this find async, we can specify in an employee max2. So an employee, no, so employee max2. Now employee dot. Okay, so with this find async, we can decide not to specify anything, but here let's use first or default instead. So employee dot first or default. Then we can specify an employee max2 e dot id is equal to the id coming in. So in case it is not, so in case this employee it is not equal to null, then this is what you want to do. So employee dot remove, so remove, then we pass in this employee. Okay, so remove this employee. Now let's see. Alright, so now let's set up an async, because this is an async, so it's supposed to have an await keyword. So await, and once we move it, then we save the changes. Okay, now when we save the changes, that is what you want to do. So here we are returning a list, that is when it's at. So as soon as it's at, we want to return this. After saving this, let's return. You can return this as, so we return a list, so we can talk about appdb context dot employees dot toList async. So we can return this. Now let's say, let's give it an await keyword here, and we can return this to the user as well. Okay, or this is what we can actually do. So parentheses can be removed. All right, so we can actually remove and I say parentheses. Do that for us. Okay, so we can also the same thing when we delete. We can also do the same thing over here, and that's going to be, since we have it as a list here, we can delete or return the whole list here and it's going to be deleted. Okay, so left, as you can see, we have the read, we have update, and we have do we have update? We have read. So this read, so this is read. That's going to be a read or. Let's see here. So this read or, and this read single. So read single, that is add. So add, so we have, and we have, that is add here, and that is delete. So we need to have an update over here, and with the update it's going to have an HTTP put verb. So put, it means we're going to update that, and now when we update it, that is what we want to do. So with the update, let's say, so public, and that's going to be task action results. So action results, and now with this action result, when we update a data, we want to return, we can also return the whole list as well, or we can return the exact data. Okay, so in here, when we update it, let's return the specific data. All right, so you pass in an employee, and you're going to say update employee, and now update this employee. You're going to pass in employee object with updated employee. Now here we are going to check. So if now this updated employee is not equal to null, then we want to call a method to do it. So we're first going to set. So let's create an employee here is equal to await. Then we can have, let's check, we have all await for this. Yes, so we can actually copy this. Let's copy this here, and now let's paste this. So we want to check the database and find out this, if this ID it is found there. So it's got a updated employee dot ID. Now let's see, then we can talk about if employee, so employee is not equal to null, then this is what you want to do. So return, if here we need to return bad request. So bad request. Then if this is also, if employees got to null, then we can request not found. So return not found. Not found. In case it is found, then we want to update it. Okay, so how do you update it? We can talk about the appdb context dot employees dot save. Can you use save changes? So save changes async. Let's see what we can actually do here when, in case we want to update data to the database. So you first need to populate this first, and let's say, so employee, this employee, so employee dot, now you want to talk about name is equal to updated employee dot name. Now the next thing is employee dot department. You have department, you have only age here, so that age is equal to updated employee dot age. Yeah, so when we have this, then we can actually app db context dot save changes, so async, then we can actually save changes here. And now we have to bring an await keyword here to make it work. Alright, so we have all these methods, read, write, and update and delete. So now this is ready. Let's try to run application and see. So I'll click on this button. Let's wait while it gets run. So we see if our method, the API, which is going to perform the CRUD operation with an SQLite database, is working. So we run the application, and you can see we have, let's see where this is coming from. So save this, and now in here, so error showing response 500 internal error, and let's see from this. Alright, let's check again and see where the problem is coming from. So here we have get, we have a connection here, then results employee return, okay, then we are returning this, and returning employees. Okay, now here that is get, and you are returning an employee here, specific one, so return this employee. Now this list, and we are returning this. Okay, so here we are not having, so this is what we can actually do. We can now copy this, we can copy this, and instead of returning this one, we can paste this here. We grab the employees and return that. We can do the same thing through this. We grab the employee and return that. Okay, so let's save this. Now this, while it gets updated, let's also grab the employee and return to the table. So we save that, and now let's see if we are going to have this same thing again. So fail to load an API definition, and let's try again to see where this error is coming from. So return, okay, employees. Alright, so wow, so you're supposed to be delete, not post. So delete. Now let's save that, and now let's wait for it to get refreshed. And alright, so we have everything here, and that is the schema. As you can see from here, employee, we have the schema here. Alright, so first of all, let's try to get all employees. So get all employees. Let's click on try it out and execute. So we can get all employees. That is the ID from 1 to 9. That is over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 over here. So that is working. Now let's go to the next one. This is post. So let's get employee by ID. Let's try this out. Let's pass in 9. That's an ID. And you can see we have the data here. That's right. So you can see this is working. Now let's go to post. Let's try to post one here. So try this out. And now the name here is going to be Kumsin. So Kumsin, we have Bernardo, and now the age here is 60. Execute, and let's see. Alright, so you can see we have it worked. It's over here, and the ID here it is 10. So this is also working perfectly. So let's go to put first. Try this out, and now let's see. So the ID of this is 10. Now instead of the Kumsin Bernardo, you want to write Kumsin Federico. So let's click on execute. Now the age is 0, and let's try again and see. So we have age 0, Kumsin Federico, Now if we try to set the age to 30 and execute, let's say we have the age as 30 here. It's working. Now the last one here, let's try to delete this text. That's the ID of 9. So ID 9 and delete. So you pass in, try it out, and the ID here, it is 9. Execute, and you can see it is returning a list, and the list that it is returning, you can see we don't have any ID again here. When I try to access a database, so run this query, and you can see from here that, let's expand this. You see we have no one, we have only from 1 to 5 and 10. Alright, so that is a way to perform this CRUD operation using the SQLite. So if you're planning to have a small website and a blog, then SQLite is good because it's going to be added to your project, and as soon as you go to your project file, you can have access to your database and everything in it by using this SQL or this browser DB for SQLite. I believe this is simple. Now in this video we talk about how to do it using the SQL server. This time around it is an SQLite, and in the next video SQL server. The same approach, just that here we have to set up the connection string different from what we've done for the SQLite. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.